Hello. As usual, before I get into the video, I'd like to know what's going on with your life. What are you doing and how are you feeling and what's up? Tell me things are going well or tell me things are going bad or tell me how you missed something or tell me how you like something. I don't know. You know, just leave a comment or something or text me on my socials if you prefer that. Not socials. It's really just one, but you know, hey, let me know what's going on. If you ever needed somebody, I might be setting myself up with that, but you know, I I wouldn't mind, because that's something I do like and I do care to do. Uh, Maybe this conversation will make you think otherwise, but not. I don't think I really feel like that towards other people or like, you know, people that come up to me for something because I feel obligated that I should help them, because someone willingly came up to themselves and they told me, hey, it would be nice if you could talk or whatever. And I feel like, I guess really recently I've been having like a feeling, uh, I guess like annoyance at like when I guess I'm that person or I'm like maybe it's not really like, oh, I need somebody to talk to you and I'd really like it if you did, but it could be more like, trying to interact with somebody or uh trying to keep things a certain way, and when things usually kind of like go off or they don't really go anywhere, it's like frustrating because let's say you like put yourself out there to either you put yourself in a way where you're like involved, but you're kind of like, you're obvious with your position and where you want to be in things, and but they kind of give you like half like a feeling of like half the effort or something, and it's like frustrating because you're not even like sure, like, is this person either engaging with me or are they too engaged? um I kind of really already said where I want to be with this, and then or I said like this is like I feel a certain way, but I don't know. I guess I have an example, but I feel like it might be too much to say. Uh, Not really, because it's like personal for me. Um, I guess more. I don't want to really put someone else's dynamic with me. I guess I'd just say like, you know, uh, I guess I'd say like someone, like person, like, oh, somebody tells me like, hey, I like you, and I don't really respond the way they expect it. So, uh, but I do care for them, and I do want to talk to them, and I do want to be around them, but it is like a little hard to it's hard to talk to them now because they're not cold. Definitely not cold. They're just like it's obvious they're mad at me, but they don't want to just say that, and for not like really responding correctly. And I just know I'm not like really in a position to really like reciprocate those feelings and things like that. And I tell myself like, oh well, you know, it's just I don't mean any harm or anything like that. I couldn't really. I'm just not really there for that. But I do understand because I'm also on the other end of that where I'm like that with my like partner or my ex, where I'm like, you know, we're still we're not close, but you know, we're friends still, and there's like a willingness to talk, but it's clear that it's like more me than they are, and it's on my end. It's not that like I'm mad. Or I guess that's not true because I am upset about that. I am upset that they aren't really like engaging with me the same way. But she's doing something like where I personally feel like I could, you know, if I was in the same position, I would have responded because, you know, it's like, it's almost like I'm like in the other room and I can like see them in the other room doing what they're doing, but like I can't, you know, like not that I can't say anything or do anything about it because I can always go in her room and say like, "Oh, I see this. I don't know why you can't help me out" or something, you know, like that. But it's more like I see it and I can't really, you know, I feel or I can't again. Uh, I feel upset about it because I feel like if I, you know, personally, I would have done that. But I think, um, not that I think, I feel like feelings like that are really bad to have. And I don't really personally like when I do feel like that because I start to think very harshly towards somebody, and I really, and it's not every day, and it's not every like hour and aspect, but you know, sometimes I can get a day where I'm like, oh, oh my gosh, I really hate this person. I hate talking to them. I hate interacting with them. I hate this. I hate the effort that I'm doing. Um, you know, and I before I would really be, I would like care too much. That's really it is. Well, like I would care too much more than I needed to. You know, and I have that feeling for like both things where I care too much in the sense that like I want to be normal with this person, and I don't want to really, you know, go through this hassle of you know, you're mad at me, and I really, you know, because I prefer that I could like talk to them and I can hang out and stuff like that. But then, you know, I'm also on the other end of the side where I'm like, oh, you know, I want this person to talk to me, and I think they're mad at me, but they won't just say that, or not. They're mad at me and they won't say that, but they're doing something clearly. They're doing something they want to do more than talking to me. I feel, and I would feel like angry about that because I would want them to just say that. But I think the problem, not I think the problem, my problem is that mindset of that where I should say, like, well, if I'm still mad at them not telling me, but I know what they're doing, why am I upset to begin with? You know, um, if I know they're busy and why they're busy, uh, what is them telling you do to make that better? You know, that's really like where that's you just create a mindset and you make you stress yourself out and you become angry or bitter about things and then they cause you to say something more um or like want to and I struggle with that still. That's something like I really don't like when I feel that way or when I like think feel whatever, because that's not a good thing to think of, and I don't really want to be that type of person. Um, I really hate that I have thoughts like that, and I really they make me even more frustrated. But they make me frustrated with myself because I'm like, why am I doing this? Whereas because there was a lot of times in my relationship where I was like that, and it would cause me to say things either because I was like jealous of something or I was frustrated with her responses or her answers. Um, because I felt like, because I felt insecure about myself. And then on top of that, I would have those thoughts and it would be like, well, wham, bam. And then now I'm angry at her for no reason. When I could have just said, like, oh, I could have addressed that with a simple, like, hey, I've been kind of feeling like this. And, you know, um, and I apologize for something I might say or do, or you say like, oh, I've been feeling like this, and I kind of like to address it or something, just to figure out what's going on. And I think like my problem is I didn't really approach those moments because I would let them build up instead of like, nipping them in the bud early on and then trying to like express them or convince myself that like what I'm thinking isn't right. I would kind of just fire off, and that's where like a lot of those like negative thoughts would come in, and then I would say something that I don't really want to or that I mean, um, but it's just something like that's built up, and then it's like, oh man, why did I do that? What's wrong with me? I know that's like, and it's not really like their fault, or it's not their fault at all for being in the position they're in entirely, because maybe in one case I seemed to give off different feelings, or I seemed to have seen like I was interested when I just thought very deeply about them as like someone I could be close with, but I didn't want to go past that. Um, while the other is, while the other, situation would be like, I'd like to be close again, or I'd like to, get back to a certain point, and then, but it's kind of like it feels like climbing a mountain, and it's frustrating. But I think like that frustration, I had to like really, you really had to like fight it back. I guess like you really had to like point out and think why you have that thought to begin with. Why you're feeling that way, and address it and say, is this valid, or is this just because things aren't going the way you want or wished? A lot of that just comes to, a lot of that just comes to like, beating that mindset and really telling yourself like, is this justified, and are you doing this because you're angry at the situation, or are they really just treating you poorly? And there comes a point where you can't really do anything either way, and you just have to accept that it's just gonna be a certain way, and it's your choice to stay in that, really. If you want to deal with somebody that's mad at you all the time, then that's something you chose to put yourself in. If you choose to if you choose to keep talking to somebody that ignores you all the time, or doesn't really give you the attention you would give them, isn't that really your issues? Your own issues, because they aren't really, one isn't really asking for you to give them that attention. They aren't really asking you to be that person that's talking to them all the time, or they want to talk to you all the time. Well, even though you may think different, they aren't you at the end of the day. You really have to think about how somebody else may feel. And the other way, I can't really give a reason to blame yourself on that one, to be honest. It's just, you hope for something better, and you hope they'll stop being mad at you, or they'll go back to, whatever situation. And I think the best way is to really just express that, and hope, they can understand your feelings, and they'll come back to, be somebody that, you cared about, and they're not somebody that is angry at you all the time because of things not going their way and what they expected. But I know you can't also, you just can't hold out forever. That's really the main point. I feel like a lot of it was just going around in circles, but really the whole thing is just, no matter the situation, you shouldn't really be holding out for something. There comes a point where you have to accept things as they are, and you have to just move on, really. That's what it is. It's just, you have to move on. And yeah, it sucks. It's hard to move on, especially when you're in certain mindsets, and for a very long time you've been sad, or for a very long time you've been seeking this exact thing, or for a very long time you put time into this thing, and or this person, or whatever, and there comes a point where you just can't do that. No matter like how much you may want to, or how much you want to try. It's always better for both people in that case to just move on. You don't always know, and that doesn't mean you have to keep it that way forever necessarily. Sometimes people come back and they come back in better headspaces, or they come back, after they worked on themselves and stuff like that. And and that's really all it is to it. To be honest, you just have to reevaluate the situation and where you were at. Do what you can for yourself at the end of the day, because they aren't always guaranteed to be there, whether it was by choice or not. So I think you shouldn't care too much, and I think you shouldn't really blame yourself too much. I think you're probably still a good person. Probably. Maybe you don't want to right now, but eventually you can be a good person again. And maybe you can get back in that mindset where you say, like, I'm ready to put myself out there for somebody, and but you do always have to keep that in mind, that you will do that, and things aren't guaranteed to get a return. And then, yeah, that's really it. I think caring people is for hard. Caring people is for hard. Oh my god. I think caring for people is hard. Because there's so many things you have to be aware of. There's so many things you have to take your time with, or be slow, and you have to be aware of how somebody else is, and you have to be aware of how you're feeling for things, and you just, there goes a lot of thought in that. Some more than others, of course. Definitely some more than others, but I think a lot of it comes down to mindset and goals, and how much you care about that, how much you care about them. What is your goal? Are you trying to be friends, or are you trying to be in a relationship? I'm really struggling with this one. Well, yeah, and I have the hiccups, so that's not any better. But how are you trying to approach this? Do you have the mindset of, I want to be this person's partner, or I want to be in a relationship with this person? So you should go in there and you should expect that they might turn you down. And you shouldn't fire off on them because of that because things didn't go your way. Because sometimes they don't. Sometimes you may not know exactly how people feel because you're so caught up in how you're feeling, and you should really remember to take the time to think about yourself, and you should take the time to think about how they're thinking. This person is talking to me this person is my friend, or this person is close to me, or this person's a family member, but I feel this way, and it hurts that it's not going this way, but I shouldn't be saying things to make them feel worse, or I shouldn't be saying things to make the whole situation worse. I think you should look more towards. I think you should look. I think you should be more aware of what the situation is, and once you figure that out, where should you go? I guess you should be aware of what the situation is and where you want to go from there. Um, it's not really good to just jump straight in, and you might be a very emotional person. Maybe you're a little too logical and you wait to jump in, or you don't really know how to jump in. And I think it's good to tell somebody that beforehand. Um, I don't know. I kind of feel like this is a bad video. Not really. Or, well, maybe not. This isn't really a bad video, but it is like a subject I think I struggle with a lot still. I think I'm far better than I was before, but I do think that I am somebody that's quick to snap. Not through anger, but with just general emotion. I I am somebody that a lot of this could apply to, and I am somebody that works to get over this because I do view it as a problem, and I do view it as something I don't like to think, and I don't like to act. I do like caring deeply for people, and I do enjoy being emotionally invested in somebody, but it is hard for me to accept that. It's hard to accept when things go poorly. Um, my aspect is when I care too much, I either have to fix it somehow, or I say something out of pain. And as a person, I'd like more to learn how to step back, take the time to really think, and take the time to just relax. Because something can be very nothing. It could be very small, and it could be just a moment in the wind, or it could be just a misinterpretation of what's really going on. And when you jump the gun and you assume, or well, I guess when I jump the gun and I assume, it kind of leads to something that could have been avoided, or it could have been something that I could have saw coming if I could have navigated properly. Because maybe I felt obligated to something, or I was so set on like this is how things are, this is how things have to be, and you don't really respond correctly. Or again, sorry, I keep saying you, but in this case, it would be me. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really know the best way to get over this feeling. I do know that so far the things that I've been doing have been working for me. I know that when I really seem to get stuck on something, I try to process what I'm angry about. Um, I try to really think like, okay, why does this keep coming back in my head? Instead of acting out or thinking of a scenario that could happen, I should be thinking, why am I creating this scenario? Why am I actively participating in something that's hasn't happened? Is this something I want to happen? Why do I want it to happen? What do you plan to do if it doesn't happen? Where are you at, and why are you here? Um, and a lot of that is just something I get better and better at doing. And it's not easy. It's not easy for me not to care. It's hard not to care. It's not hard to. It's hard to not care for someone. It's hard not to want to hope for better. It's hard not to. It's hard not to not care, and as well too. To want to be left alone and not really bothered. Because sometimes you aren't obligated to help people either when they're like this. You aren't obligated to respond to their feelings, and like I said, those people should try to think about how you may be feeling, and they should, but they won't always do that. They won't always try to or want to. So it's kind of on you to be like, do you want to engage with this? And if you do, are you ready for that? And if you can't, you say, I'm not really able to, and you take a step back, and you say, I am now. Some people probably prefer you say that before, but if you really can't say that before, then then you can't. Like, yeah, I care too much. I care about people and I care about things too much. But I seem not to care about myself that much. And that's something I really want to change. That's something I'm going to continue to change, and I'm going to stop letting myself be put in situations where I hurt myself, or I'm going to stop letting myself be put in situations where I might hurt someone else. I might not always be able to do that, but I will. I want to make an effort. And I hope that you can escape those feelings, and I hope you can navigate properly against those feelings, or to help somebody through those feelings. And that's really it. Really, that's it. Really, um, what is it to it? Other than you care too much, and maybe you shouldn't. As always, um, have a good night. Have a good day. Solar eclipse or whatever. And, if you're an alien watching this, and yeah, take care of yourself. And if you can, take care of other people.